Greetings, Golden One, and thank you for responding to my video, and moreover, thank you for the respectful response to my video. And I also want to thank your viewers, your followers, for their respectful comments. By and large, I don't think I saw any negative comments from any of your viewers. I wanted to do a response video to your response, covering the points that you had made. Let's get to it.
He takes up a good few situations where I've talked about animal welfare and responsibility towards Mother Nature. And yeah, I'm all for that. I need to go two examples. Like first, because I've said like in Sweden we have a really good relationship with animals, and we do. And he brought up like mink farming, and I'm just gonna straight tell you, like in my future Sweden, obviously mink farming will not be existing, like no question about that at all. That's one barbarous aspect and really an exception towards Sweden in general. So but yeah, in the future like mink farms will not be present in Sweden, I can assure you that. And the other one was a pig farm which was poorly run, and obviously we're gonna keep doing, and also in my future Sweden will keep doing rigorous controls to ensure that the animal farms are treated in accord with the set standard. However, with those two claims you made, like the mink farms and the pig farm, you didn't really refute any of my claims, and it's still that regular farming, like dairy production, is quite clean in Sweden, and that is the majority of my animal products that I consume. That's where they came from. So I'm not big into meat at all. I don't really like meat, but I consume a lot of dairy products, and I happen to know that the dairy production in Sweden is quite clean indeed. So then you can't really point at a mink farm or a pig farm to prove your point.
First, the mink and pig farming examples were used to counter your claim that Sweden has a healthy respect for animals. And there are other examples.
Did you realize pigs are boiled alive in Sweden and Swedish meat facilities? Then there's how Swedish farms treat chickens.
Do you consume eggs? Chicken? If you do, then you condone that practice by virtue of financial support when purchasing those products. As for dairy farming, I did address the process of how your milk is farmed and manufactured. Now, as for the dairy you consume.
That dairy isn't harmless. A cow needs to be forcefully impregnated by sperm extracted from a bull held captive elsewhere. The cow eventually gives birth, and calves are removed from their mother immediately. They do not want the baby drinking its mother's milk. Nope. That milk is meant to be prepared and sold to human consumers for profit.
Without this process of constant lactation, there would be decreased profits and inability to keep up with the dairy demand for consumers.
And here's a human spin on what happens to dairy cows. Perspective is so important.
And the lid will soon be blown on the Swedish dairy farms.
According to a friend of mine in Sweden, the Swedish Animal Alliance will be doing an investigation of Swedish dairy farms this fall.
But it won't be a shock what they find.
And another friend of mine who lived in Sweden tells me, I know someone who works for a famous dairy company in Sweden, and he doesn't consume dairy because he has seen the nastiness, but I'm sure he'd get fired if he took pics or made videos.
It appears Sweden is no better than any other nation with regards to barbaric farming practices, but you can stop your support by going vegan, dropping meat, which you admit you don't really like anyway, as well as dairy and eggs completely.
But with that said, I want to talk a bit about the other aspect, and that is whether it's unethical to kill something or not. And I'm actually gonna straight up tell you, like, no, there's nothing unethical about killing something. What is unethical is treating animals like pure shit, like they do in America, for example. Like, with those gruesome, horrible meat factories. That is unethical, but just killing an animal, that's nothing wrong with that at all.
I've already covered instances of how poorly animals are treated in Sweden, which I've demonstrated is comparable to America. Notice I said comparable. So yes, let's talk about the ethics of killing. Before we proceed, I have a question for you. Is it unethical to kill pets for pleasure? Or even kill innocent people, like a family member or a significant other, merely for pleasure? Because if you admit that killing pets and innocent people is unethical merely for pleasure, then to not appear hypocritical, you must concede that killing animals not out of self-defense, but for consumption is unethical. Why?
Because official organizations such as the American Dietetic Association have stated that an appropriately handled vegan diet is healthy for all stages of life.
Thus, you don't need meat, dairy, or eggs for health or performance. The consumption of such is purely for one's own pleasure or convenience, and totally unnecessary support of exploitation and slaughter. Here's a powerful scene from the Clint Eastwood film Unforgiven, for you to consider on the topic of killing and what is ultimately taken, ultimately robbed.
It don't seem real. I ain't gonna never breathe again, ever. How he's dead. And the other one, too. All on account of pulling a trigger.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got, and all he's ever gonna have.
To give a good example, like we can take hunting, for example. There's a swift, clean kill. Yes, an animal dies, but everything in nature dies. And you know, when you hunt, the animal dies a natural death from a superior predator. So a swift, clean kill by a hunting rifle, there's nothing unethical about that at all. What is unethical is the gruesome torture of animals. And no, I can honestly straight up tell you that killing some humans aren't necessarily evil either. Like, if you have a fucking pedophile that has captured your daughter or something, like, would you hesitate to kill that man? No, you obviously wouldn't. So that is nothing unethical about killing certain humans as well.
As a lifelong martial artist, I fully and utterly agree with you about self-defense or the defense of another, such as putting an end to a pedophile.
But you can't compare killing or disabling a pedophile or any other act of self-defense to killing something merely for your pleasure or convenience, something that I've already addressed in this video.
For example, you showcased I ate a Big Mac. I eat basically at McDonald's once in a year. I eat a Big Mac once in a year. So I mean, that's not a problem. I'm not gonna cut out it completely because I don't want to forbid myself from doing stuff.
Eating a Big Mac once a year is still supportive of the problem. It still funds those industries. This is like a rapist saying, well, you know, it's cool. I only rape once a year because I don't want to forbid myself.
Here you say, don't you agree that it is better that I get a far larger population to go semi-vegan?
I agree with this only so far as it is a valid stepping stone for some people who can't go cold, and it does cut back on support of those industries, but it is not a final destination, as you are still supporting those industries to some degree.
And obviously it would be in my interest as well that people start eating less meat, because you know it's not sustainable for Mother Nature, and Mother Sweden comes first, then Mother Europe, then Mother Nature, in that order.
First, bear in mind, without Mother Nature, you wouldn't have Mother Europe and therefore Mother Sweden. And you do understand the environmental impact.
According to a UN report, lesser consumption of animal products is necessary to save the world from the worst impacts of climate change. Agriculture, particularly meat and dairy products, accounts for 70% of global freshwater consumption, 38% of total land use, and 19% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions.
One Big Mac requires 5,000 liters of water. 2,400 liters of water are required for one average hamburger, and 16,000 liters of water is needed to produce 1 kilogram of beef. One glass of milk requires 200 liters of water. Imagine the difference you could make going vegan. In 2008, 0.5% or 1 million Americans identified as vegan. In 2014, 2.5% or 7.5 million Americans identified as vegan. Thus, veganism is growing. In 6 years, there has been a 2% increase, which equates to 6.5 million new vegans in the US alone. I am reminded of this quote from the film The Crow.
Man has an idea. The idea attracts others, like-minded. The idea expands. The idea becomes an institution.
The average vegetarian saves 34 land animals each year, over 32 of them being chickens. On top of that, 219 more are fish, 151 more are shellfish, the vast majority of which being shrimp. Thus, the average vegetarian saves 404 lives annually. Now, imagine how many lives a full vegetarian bodybuilder would save, given how much food is consumed within that lifestyle. Now, imagine how many would be saved going full vegan and eliminating dairy and eggs on top of meat consumption. This brings me to a challenge for you. I challenge you, the golden one, to watch the documentary Earthlings, and even Cowspiracy, both of which I've linked in the description below. Earthlings is completely free, and it's available online to view. And I challenge you to honestly try a plant-based diet just for 30 days. Now, it is ultimately your choice to go full vegan and continue with veganism, but it would clearly be the glorious thing to do.